Number 5. From the works of Crispin Alsberg, the maker of Jumanji and Zathura, the movie is The Polar Express. Now this one is a really good film from the works of Robert Zemeckis' Image Movers Digital, and it's also his first holiday motion capture film that he's ever made. And the story about this one is about a young boy who doesn't have a name in this story, but however, in this one, he goes, aboard the locomotive that's said to be heading for the North Pole, taking children to meet Santa Claus. And in this one also, Tom Hanks does a great multiple roles in this one. He plays, the narrator, the hero boy's dad, the conductor, the hobo, even Santa Claus himself. And it's he's a phenomenon in this movie. And the moral of this one is, almost believing in what you're seeing, and then your dreams will come true. And also some things are kind of referenced to the certain other films that Robert Zemeckis has ever made. There is one reference to Forrest Gump in it, and it also does have one part that shows what's to come at times as well. But there are some intense stuff, like the roller coaster scene, even the part on the icy lake. But I urge you to watch this film during Christmas time, and you'll be in for quite a ride. Number 4. Now this one is one of my all-time favorite Christmas films, and it is about the very own famous reindeer of all time. I know I've already mentioned 2 other Rudolph classics before this one, but this one happens to be the one that beats them all. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the movie. This one is kind of a little different from the one from Rankin Bass. I mean, it does kind of play out similar to it, but in this one, not too long after Rudolph is kicked out of the reindeer games and halfway through the film, he runs away from home, but then urges the love interest Zoe to go after him, but she ends up getting captured by the villain Stormella, played by Whoopi Goldberg. But then also Rudolph learned from the sprites of the Northern Lights that his nose is the only way to saving Zoe from the evil Snow Queen. And however, Rudolph's new friends, Slyly, a fox played by Eric Idle, and Leonard, a polar bear voiced by Bob Newhart, are great side characters in this one. Also, John Goodman does a pretty good job playing as Santa Claus, and this is also the time when, before John Goodman reprised his role as Santa Claus in that god-awful Year Without a Santa Claus remake that came afterwards. So, and also there are good songs such as Wonderful Christmas Time and certain others. Even Debbie Reynolds has a great number of roles in this movie, like Mrs. Claus, 2 of the Sprites, Mrs. Prancer, even several others. And I bet you'll love this film as much as I do from my childhood. Number 3. And I gotta admit, what kind of Christmas film would it be without having a very own famous imaginary author write one? That guy I'm talking about is Dr. Seuss. And I also have to mention, that his favorite character happens to be the one I'm talking about on my number 3 spot. The Grinch. I bet you wondering, ever since I've been the Grinch Who Stole the Season during my 4th grade year at Del Cerro, or performed as the Grinch in Seussical at Musical Theater Village, you knew if I ever made a list like this that I would include this movie. And why wouldn't I? I mean, it's a really good one. I'd like the Chuck Jones version, but I feel like this one is a little bit better, though. I mean, Jim Carrey does a great job as the Grinch. I mean, he doesn't frighten me. I mean, he makes me laugh a lot. And there are also some great character development to the Grinch. And also, when I first saw this movie in theaters, it kind of made me feel like I was kind of scared of having facial hair that I would end up being laughed at myself as much as he was. But there is one character that kind of drives me nuts, and which is the mayor. And Max is one of my favorite characters in the film, along with Cindy Lou Who. And I also like how they managed to have Jim Carrey sing the You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch song in this film. And also, the part when Faith Hill sings her song at the end of the movie is really, really enjoyable. So, just don't get too much green when you watch this film, and you'll love it as much as you love the Chuck Jones version. Number 2. Now, have you ever thought of having your favorite childhood icons being superheroes? Well, last year, DreamWorks made a movie based on some books written by William Joyce. And that film happens to be The Rise of the Guardians. In this one, Santa Claus, aka North, assembles his team of Guardians, the Easter Bunny, the Tooth Fairy, and Sandman, to face on the evil villainous Pitch, aka the Boogeyman, from terrorizing the children's dreams and preventing them from being forgotten. But when they need to start, the moon chooses a new guardian to help them around, and they choose Jack Frost to join them. During the film, we also learn that Pitch plans to prevent kids from ever believing in the Guardians anymore, and also we also learn more about Jack Frost, and part of it does make you think of the original Rankin-Bass film as well, and also just to let everyone know that this film is kind of dedicated to the death of William Joyce's daughter, which is upsetting, though. My condolences to you, Mr. Joyce. And Pitch is really a threatening villain, and I just don't know what to say too much. But this film is really enjoyable to watch during any time of the year, especially during Christmas time, and I just hopefully they make a sequel to this movie. Like they should have Mother Nature, Uncle Sam, Father Time, the Leprechauns for St. Patrick's Day, or whatever. This film will blow your mind during Christmas time, and you'll love it. Now, before I move to my number 1 spot, I have to make an honorable mention. Now, you may be wondering it's not really a whole movie that I'm including as an honorable mention. It's actually a segment from one of Walt Disney's magnum opuses, the Nutcracker suite from Fantasia. According to Deems Taylor in this film, you don't actually see any Nutcracker on the screen. You do hear the music from it, but in this segment, it does show, the beauties of nature in this one. It's the first part of it shows, some fairies bringing, doing the kind of beauties of nature during nighttime, like raindrops on spider webs and flowers growing and certain stuff. And then the next part of it shows, a bunch of mushrooms dancing, and then you see these flowers dancing on the water, and then you go underwater and witness these fish dancing around, and then more flowers dancing in a duet, and then you notice a change of seasons with seeing autumn change to winter. I know the whole film doesn't have anything to do with Christmas, but during the time of the year, the Nutcracker suite from this film is really, really good. And it does get you into the holiday mood by watching it. And what I mean is, now that my number 1 favorite holiday film is, there is one film that I really like, but perhaps I should explain a little bit of a detail. From anything that celebrates this wonderful season to be jolly, probably my favorite Christmas story of all time, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Everyone knows this story. Ebenezer Scrooge is a greedy, cruel man who values money over human life. On Christmas Eve, he is greeted by the ghost of his deceased business partner, Jacob Marley, who died 7 years prior. Jacob warns him that if he does not change his ways, he will be cursed to bear heavy chains in the afterlife. He is then visited by the spirits of the past, present, and future, able to guide Scrooge to change his ways. And over the years, there have been a lot of adaptations of the story, especially with plays such as the one I'm in at Musical Theater Village, where I play Jacob Marley and Mr. Poole, one of the charity gentlemen. However, out of all the adaptations I seem to have, like Muppet Christmas Carol, Scrooge, or the Kenneth Kelsey Grammer version, there is one film that I find is my absolute favorite, and I believe is the best adaptation of Christmas Carol. This one. I mean, this one in motion capture, I mean, why wasn't this one thought of before? I mean, Jim Carrey does a pretty good job with this movie. I mean, playing as Ebenezer Scrooge and the Three Ghosts, and I mean, the rest of the cast is pretty good too. And everything, like, but still, it's a shame that Image Movers Digital, the studio that made this film, is no longer in business after a certain mistake of a film that they made afterwards. But Christmas Carol, overall, I choose this one as my #1 film because of how it brings to everybody. It's like bright, warm, and spectacular, and beautiful. But most of all, it is Christmas. And it's better than any cheesy, fluffy family film you see at Christmas time. A Christmas Carol, my #1 favorite holiday film of all time. I wonder how long it'll take for me to review Save Mr. Banks until it comes out. Wait a minute. What's that? It slipped underneath my door. What's this? I wonder where this comes from. I wasn't expecting any Netflix.